We are witnessing a seismic shift in global trade as the Indian rupee replaces the US dollar as the preferred currency for trade settlements. By watching this video, you will learn about the history and importance of international trade and how it affects the Indian economy. You will also gain insights into the concept of trade deficit and its impact on the value of the Indian currency. The United Arab Emirates, UAE, along with 18 other nations, has recently announced its decision to settle trade in INR, marking a significant milestone in the internationalization of the Indian currency. India is a net importing country, which means that it imports more goods and services than it exports. When India imports goods and services, it needs to pay for them in the currency of the exporting country, which is usually the US dollar. This means that India needs to hold a significant amount of US dollars to pay for its imports. However, the value of the US dollar has been increasing in recent years, which has put pressure on India's foreign exchange reserves. Forex reserves refer to the foreign currency assets that a country holds to manage its international trade and financial obligations. This can be a problem for India because it means that it needs to hold more US dollars to pay for its imports, which puts pressure on its forex reserves. Moreover, when the value of the US dollar increases, the value of other currencies, including the Indian rupee, decreases. This means that India needs to spend more rupees to buy the same amount of US dollars, which can lead to inflationary pressures in the economy. A few years ago, there were sanctions on Iran that resulted in the country being unable to trade in US dollars. This was a problem for India, as it imported a significant amount of oil from Iran and needed to pay for it in US dollars. However, the Reserve Bank of India came up with a solution. It allowed India and Iran to trade in Indian rupees instead of US dollars. This move by the RBI was significant because it marked the first time that India had allowed international trade in rupees. Prior to this, all international trade was conducted in US dollars or other major currencies. By allowing India and Iran to trade in rupees, the RBI was able to ensure that India could continue to import oil from Iran, which was a critical source of energy for the country. Fast forward to the present day, and the RBI has once again allowed international trade in rupees. This time, the move is not due to sanctions, but rather a desire to reduce India's reliance on US dollars and promote the use of the rupee in international trade. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has led to sanctions being imposed on Russia by a number of countries, including the United States and the European Union. These sanctions have had a significant impact on Russia's economy, including its ability to conduct international trade in US dollars. With the sanctions limiting Russia's ability to trade in US dollars, the RBI has been able to offer the use of the rupee as an alternative currency for conducting trade with India. This move is part of the RBI's broader strategy to reduce India's reliance on US dollars and promote the use of the rupee in international trade. What happens when a country's economy comes to a halt due to a drastic fall in foreign exchange, forex, reserves? Sri Lanka is a glaring example of this scenario, as the country is currently going through one of its worst economic crises in decades. In recent years, Sri Lanka's economy has been heavily reliant on borrowing from foreign lenders to finance its infrastructure projects and other development initiatives. However, this borrowing has led to a significant increase in the country's debt, making it difficult for Sri Lanka to repay its creditors. As a result, Sri Lanka's forex reserves have been depleting rapidly, which has led to a halt in its economy. With little foreign currency to support its imports, the country has been facing severe shortages of essential goods such as fuel, medicine, and even food. The situation has also led to a significant depreciation in the value of the Sri Lankan rupee, making imports more expensive and further exacerbating the country's economic problems. The lack of forex reserves has also made it difficult for Sri Lanka to service its external debt, further worsening the situation. As an example, despite the Sri Lankan rupee experiencing a decline of over 83% against the US dollar, its decline against the Indian rupee has been comparatively lower at 70%. This presents an opportunity for Sri Lanka to save money on purchases by paying in Indian rupees instead of paying 83% more in USD. One important question that the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, and the Indian government will need to address is why countries that have a trade surplus with India would want to trade in Indian rupees. This is a pertinent question because countries like China, which had a trade surplus of $73 billion with India in the 2021-22 financial year, have little incentive to use the Indian rupee for trade transactions. When a country has a trade surplus with another, it means that the value of the goods and services it exports to the other country is higher than the value of the goods and services it imports from the other country. In the case of India and China, India is importing significantly more from China than it is exporting to China, resulting in a large trade surplus for China. From China's perspective, there may be little reason to use the Indian rupee for trade transactions since it has a large surplus of Indian currency already. Additionally, trading in Indian rupees may not be as advantageous for China as trading in US dollars, which is the world's most widely accepted currency. Countries whose exports to India are significantly higher than their imports from India may not be interested in trading in Indian rupees, particularly if the difference between the value of their exports and imports is substantial, as is the case with China. In such a scenario, these countries may not see any compelling reason to use the Indian rupee for trade transactions as they may already have a surplus of Indian currency, and using the rupee may not be as advantageous for them as trading in a more widely accepted currency like the US dollar. Now let us talk about 5 action-oriented steps that India can take to improve its international trade deficit. Increase exports. India can incentivize exporters by providing tax benefits, duty drawback schemes, and export subsidies. The government can also negotiate more favorable trade agreements with its major trading partners to increase market access for Indian goods. Promote domestic manufacturing. India can reduce imports by promoting domestic production and substituting imported goods with locally manufactured ones. The government can provide support to domestic industries, especially in sectors where India has a comparative advantage. Diversify export destinations. India can reduce its reliance on a few export markets by diversifying its export destinations. The government can encourage Indian companies to explore new markets and provide support to exporters in areas such as market intelligence and export finance. Improve logistics and infrastructure. India can reduce the cost of doing business by improving its logistics and infrastructure. This can be achieved through investments in ports, railways, and roads, and by simplifying trade procedures. Enhance ease of doing business. India can attract more foreign investment and promote domestic production by improving its overall business environment. The government can simplify regulations and enhance the ease of doing business by leveraging digital technologies. Let us conclude the video with 5 steps that each Indian citizen can take to add value and contribute to the growth of the Indian economy, taking inspiration from the history of the United States. Embrace entrepreneurship. Like Americans, Indians can also embrace entrepreneurship and start their own businesses. They can identify gaps in the market and create innovative solutions to meet the needs of consumers. By doing so, they can not only create wealth for themselves but also generate employment opportunities for others. Prioritize education and research. Just like how the US invested in education and research to drive innovation and technological advancements, Indians can also prioritize education and research. By pursuing higher education and investing in research, Indians can develop new technologies and drive economic growth. Indians can support local industries by buying locally produced goods and services. This can help create demand for domestic products, stimulate economic activity, and reduce dependence on imports. Adopt new technologies. Americans have been early adopters of new technologies, which has helped drive innovation and economic growth. Indians can also embrace new technologies and leverage them to drive productivity and efficiency in their work and businesses. Participate in politics and governance. Finally, Americans have always been actively engaged in politics and governance, holding their elected officials accountable and driving policy changes that support economic growth. Indians can also participate in politics and governance by exercising their right to vote, engaging with their elected representatives, and advocating for policies that promote economic growth and development. In conclusion, as we have seen, India's international trade deficit is a complex issue with various factors at play. However, there are action-oriented steps that India can take to improve the situation, such as promoting domestic manufacturing, increasing exports of high-value goods, diversifying its trade partners, and improving the ease of doing business. We hope that this video has been informative and helpful in understanding the issue of India's international trade deficit. If you found this content valuable, please consider subscribing to our channel for more informative videos on global economics and trade. Also, feel free to leave your thoughts and comments on this video, and let us know what other topics you would like us to cover in the future. Together, let's work towards a more prosperous global economy.